Find yourself a booth, order up a cold one. This is the Spring Bar.
Hey everybody, welcome to Spring Bar. Glad to have you here. I am Florida Mike, today with my co-host Casey and Joey in the OC. Gentlemen, how you doing today?
Good. I'm better than Joe.
Say, we know from the pre-show how Joe's doing right now.
Joe's dragging.
Joe let us know that he drank all the bourbon in the house.
I drank all the bourbon.
So what do you have in the glass now? Then
Not
is that
bourbon.
water? No,
It's not water.
No.
It's hair of a different dog.
Oh, okay. All right. So we jumped the gun here then. All right. So what's in the glass?
Yeah, I know. We did a little bit. That's okay.
What are you rocking?
Let's see. What do we got? Today is the surfboard.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I was having a
Sports,
conversation.
right?
I was actually having a conversation with somebody about this who was saying, I don't think it's going to fit my wrist. I'm like, well, how big's your wrist? Guy's got like a 7 3/4 inch wrist, and anything that's 40 millimeters, he says it looks too small. It's like, well, you might want to rock this one because it'll end up looking like the vintage. You know, the website says it's 40.5. I think it wears larger than that because the bezel is so small. So I don't know. It's an interesting watch. I like it.
Well, if that person thinks that the 40, 42 is too small, then we have the brand for them.
We have got the show for them.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll go next because Joe and I are twinsing. I am also wearing my surfboard, and this came out of no consultation between the two of us this morning. So I just put mine on. He put his on.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are quartz, right?
Yeah, they're the quartz versions.
And then there is a mechanical version.
There is mechanical. It's smaller. It's more of the vintage size, but it's also it's the one I've got. It's that really tall sucker.
It's also like $12,000+ right?
Yeah. It's worth a kidney.
What is it retail at? What, 3,200
something like that?
2,400, 3,200. I forget what the actual full retail price is on that, but it's expensive.
I think it's 29, like 29.95 or something like that. It's up there,
something like that.
It's up there,
but worth what you paid for yours. I think it's worth it for sure.
I agree, particularly when you're looking at the limited edition, the 35 or 350 pieces. I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it. What you got, Casey?
I'm actually also wearing a chronograph. I've got the dead sights, which is not coming into focus, but y'all know what it is. It's the that German,
which in and of itself is surfboard-esque too. You have that outline.
Yeah. I mean, I think this falls because Joe and I were talking about this. You know, there was that time period where people were just buying from the same case manufacturer and the same movement.
Oh yeah, all through the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And because this dat sight is a Everwatch as well, just with different printing. So
yeah,
I like that one though. I think that's really funky. I think that the colors are great. I love the gold. I think that's a killer watch.
And in the glass is some H2O.
See, yeah. I should be doing that.
I'm drinking an Arnold Palmer. I drank for most of the afternoon, so I'm just taking it easy.
Nice.
I did not drink bourbon.
I have a PT test next weekend, so.
I drank all the bourbon.
So, are you coherent enough, Joe, to tell us what it is we're talking about today?
I drank all the bourbon.
Hold on. I take that back. I'm jumping the gun again, man.
You are.
Yeah, we got to do some NWAs. Because I know you have some, Joe. Does Casey have anything new?
I do, because I didn't even talk about this on the show yet.
No, I don't have anything new. So you guys take it away. Tell the fine folks what it is that came in.
So then, Joe, why don't you tell us about yours and then end it with asking what's on tap, rolling into what I got.
Oh,
Perfect.
Look at you.
Look at that. Some on-air planning. I like that.
So I got my Braille back. And this is a new old stock, and it's also, pop top. This is a watch we sent to a friend of the show, Dave, in Japan, and Dave said, I can take a look at that. I can do something with it. So I sent it off, and it came back this week. But this is kind of the kicker for it, and we'll do a little bit more on this later. He sent two, not just one for me, but somebody else, another listener, Justin, reached out and was like, "Hey man, that's really cool. Do you have another one of those?" It's like, I don't, but what do you ask? What's going on? It's like, well, I was substitute teaching, and there was a blind girl at the school, and it'd be really cool to get her a watch. I'm like, well, let's find out. So reach back out to Dave. I'm like, hey, I know that you picked up like a whole mess of parts. And the watches that he got were produced by the American Federation for the Blind. So they're AFB on the dial, but it's essentially the exact same watch, same dial size, same case shape, same case manufacturer.
Yeah, speaking of case sharing, yeah.
So like it's that same thing. And I was like, hey, I know you got all these extra parts. Maybe if you've got some extra that we got enough to, could we put together a watch for somebody who reached out? And Dave's like, oh yeah, I think I can pull that off. And so he did.
So hold on, before you go forward, I didn't realize it was a teacher that reached out to you. I thought it was the father of the girl that did, but the teacher, her teacher did. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was one of those things you sit there, you think about it, it's like, we could do this. We could totally do this.
Yeah.
And it's one of those bit moments for the watch fam, doing something for potential.
And I'm sure
watch fam.
when you proposed that to Dave, he jumped on it in a heartbeat.
Oh, there was no question. He was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
he's such a good guy. He's such a good guy.
It's a really cool story. It's a really cool watch. But like he picked up, I don't even know where he got this stuff from, but he picked up like a grab bag of like a watchmaker's going out of business, 15 dials, 6 movements, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there was enough to make probably a couple watches out of that. Which I mean, and it's a great story. So I got that back. I got the Commodore back, went up to see Magic Hands, had the Commodore done. And then I also took up, and this is going to be sort of an ongoing series, I think, from me, the orange dial 666 that I just got.
The text that were going on about this watch.
It's something else, man. It's something else. So I had Magic Hands strip out the case. Movement is out, dial is out. Bezel took way too long to get out because it's new and it was really tight. Crystal is gone. And this sucker, we're going to try to get it coated. We're going to try to get it coated, see if we can make it black and see what happens. So that should go out this week and follow along.
Essentially, you want it to look like that print that you got.
That one that you can't see because of the reflection.
Yeah, there's a big glare. I can see it behind you there. Yeah, the black case.
That's the one.
Orange dial. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Here's the weird thing. So if anybody's listening or watching and you get into watch mods or repairs and things like that, Joe's like, we're trying to get the bezel off. And I said, well, just pop the crystal out. It should give you some clearance to be able to pull the retainer spring. He's like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, why not? Any sense? You pop the bezel out, you pull the retainer spring. It's easy as that. No, we got to get it with the machine and there's a claw and it doesn't work. And we've been trying, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, these watches have a stepped sapphire crystal, which is wider at the base than it is where it fits through the bezel that keeps it from pressing out. Mm-hmm. I've never, ever seen anything like that before in a modern watch.
Yeah, it's really funky. Like we couldn't push it out that way. And then on top of it, it's a sapphire crystal.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't, there's no compression that's going to go into it or else you're going to crack the whole thing. It's got, AR coating and the whole bit. So I didn't
believe you. I'm like, send me pictures. And you did. I mean, I couldn't believe it. It's the wildest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's really kind of cool. So I'm waiting to see what's going to happen. And this is going to be a little bit of a process. So KC, what's on tap?
Well, so circling back to my new watch alert, which is going to relate to what's on tap, I recently received a concussion and been buying a bunch of Invictas.
Casey's got bitten by the Invicta bug.
Yeah,
well,
so I don't know.
Right, wait.
I'm pretty sure I was I was sober, right?
I'm pretty sure I was sober.
But I was in the middle of the one watch challenge, and I'm just like on eBay like it's YouTube. And I come across, I'm like, hey, well, what does vintage Invicta look like? And I find this one. I'm like, oh, buy it now. And then I'm like trolling through for more, which, by the way, vintage Invicta on eBay, there's really not too much to choose from.
Massively hard to find. So weird.
Yeah.
Then I see a vintage digital.
How old is that? What year is it?
I'm guessing 90s.
It's got to be late 90s. Yeah.
That makes it vintage. It's 20 years.
So freaking, I saw that and I was like, I don't know when I've ever seen a digital Invicta. So I jumped on it right away. And I also have this weird thing about digital watches that do wild things, like got a camera in it. This one's a freaking thermostat, essentially.
Thermostat,
but a thermometer. But yeah, so I picked this thing up, and it takes 20 mil straps, changes out pretty easily. I'll actually wear this, maybe not out to the field, but I'll wear it in uniform. It's got the Invicta, what it might call them, the Breitling wings. Speaking of case sharing, there is another Sensor Master, which is what this is called, that is unbranded, and I assume where Invicta got it, and they just printed Invicta on it. So, yeah.
Where's that made? Is it a Chinese or Taiwanese?
Oh, that's a good question.
China.
Well, it says Swiss Sensor. It says Swiss Sensor.
They will take every opportunity to brand anything Swiss that they can.
Swiss made.
Yeah. It's Swiss. Don't worry about it.
For those that are still with us, that haven't tuned out right away, when they heard Invicta, this is actually going to be a fun episode because we're talking vintage stuff. We're going to be roasting them a little bit, so stick around because it's going to be some fun.
Right. So we'll open up with the history of the brand, which is not going to take very long. And then we're going to go into talking about some of our favorite but ugly Invictas. And then we'll round it out with some genuine things that we believe will be of quality that you can purchase from Invicta today, as well as some of their vintage offerings. So without further ado, all right, so we'll keep this pretty quick, but the history of the brand starts at 1836 in Switzerland, which I'm not even going to pronounce the place in Switzerland.
Oh, I think you should. Oh, come on.
I think it's Lacox Pifons.
Perfect.
It's definitely Lacox Pifons. So it's a Swiss brand. It was started by Picard is the last name. Raphael
Picard.
Yep. So I thought that was interesting because when he wasn't, captain of the Enterprise, he's working on Invicta stuff, I guess. Anyway, so they start off in the 1800s, pretty, early-ish 1800s, not quite halfway through. And they're producing pocket watches. They get into some pretty strong complications, develop a chronograph that they can sell. Not saying they developed the chronograph, but they had one on offering. And I think I found some reference that they won some mid-level minor awards in the early 1900s. So it's not like, I wouldn't say, obviously they're not a heavy-hitting brand historically. Otherwise, we'd be hearing about it nonstop, like freaking Omega's Moon Trip. But I think they held their own from what it sounds like.
Like the part of the impetus behind the brand too was for it to be almost like a value brand.
Right.
Not exactly, but they were looking to make let's make a good watch that you can get for a little bit less. So like in-house wasn't exactly happening there, but the designs were solid. They were contemporary.
Yeah. And I think they definitely took advantage of that case sharing. I'm sure we'll get into some of their chronograph offerings that look suspiciously like other chronographs.
Mm-hmm.
But So yeah, they're just doing their thing. Now I did hear on a Watch You Seek forum, which I'm not really going to say is like scholarly, but there is rumor.
Watch You Seek is scholar.
Yeah, there is rumor that the USSR reached out and contracted Invicta to produce watches for their Navy, which might be what that Invicta Russian diver is based off of, that it's a potential reissue of that. Now, the forum was slightly toxic, but I didn't stay in there very long, but there's a lot of, actually, no, actually, oh, but this, and how dare you insinuate? Yeah, so got out of there quick. And then
some of the forums can get that way real fast too. It's funny.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And much to the lethal toxicity of that forum, so was the Quartz crisis to Invicta. So Invicta got clapped by, Seiko's Quartz movement. But so again, I don't really know if this is fact, but the rumor is that the family ended up buying the brand again in 1991. I don't know. It sounds like a good story. Like it's something that if I was running the branding, the PR for Invicta, that's what I would definitely want to slap up there. But yeah, so they came back in the 90s, which is where I probably would say this is probably one of their first resurgent watches.
Probably.
And watches of note. I mean, they own Glycine now.
Right.
So there is that. They've done some pretty interesting stuff we'll get into, but I think they position themselves in a manner to be a decent, like, if you wanted to get your kid an automatic watch, this would be a good place to go. And if you are a larger, maybe more heavy set individual, this brand will offer you a watch that will fit the size of your wrist for sure.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've yanked the linchpin on the let's beat the hell out of Invicta. So,
well, it's sad. So is it the same family that's owned it from the early 90s all the way through now?
That's the story.
That's what they say.
So here, hold on. I'm sending a link in the chat. The watch that we were discussing earlier today is actually $99 in the blue colorway.
Oh, wow.
$99. It's almost worth it just buying it before they sell out.
Whoa. You talking about the pinball?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
It's a thing of beauty.
Oh, yep. So we're talking. I came across this Invicta, and apparently it's a new model. I thought it was older, but it's new because you can still buy it here. $99. It's a pinball machine with a little clock subdial.
Dude,
it's so
holy crap!
Cool.
They have heavily discounted this. It's supposed to be almost $500.
Yeah. Well,
are we saying this is a value proposition?
Absolutely.
I'm saying
42 millimeters.
You buy it for $99 because it's $99.
42 millimeters, but that doesn't give you the lug to lug, which looks like it's probably closer to what, 60?
Yeah.
Dude, who cares? You got a pinball machine on your wrist. Dude, if you walked into a watch meet with that, you'd be the star of the show.
Oh my God.
What I don't know is how do you work
into any Red Bar event with a pinball machine on your wrist?
How do you work the paddles?
Unless poorly, I bet.
I don't think there are any.
I don't think there are.
Dude, oh no, this is starting to get worse like the damn chronograph.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So what are we roasting, or are we talking some vintage stuff first? What are we doing first here?
So I say that we go in and we talk about some of their butt ugly watches and then redeem them in the end.
It's so sad because their roots are in a legit, decent, good watch company. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know what made them turn into what they are now. And it's getting worse and worse with every release they come out with. I mean, so I told you where I put all my stuff in the folder here. So go into my folder and take a look. It's titled Ugly Number One. I don't know what the model name is of this thing. It's white steel covered in itty bitty teeny tiny little diamonds. It's got a rose gold, like a boat
Oh,
anchor
dude,
chain.
that's the sin against God.
Was that the model name?
Yeah.
It has boat anchor chains on the side of it. It has a gold chain on the bezel. It's got. I mean, just it has to be what 24 millimeters off your wrist. I mean, this just
Dude,
what the hell are
the
you
person who's
thinking?
wearing it's probably got an 8-inch wrist, but it makes it look like I got a 6-inch wrist.
Yeah, it hasn't been sized hardly at all. Yeah, it's something else, man. It is something else. Like I
Do you
was
have
checking
to
out.
factor in the external chains into your bracelet resizing?
Who knows?
Oh, that's a good question.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Or do you ratchet the chains up like it's a freaking anchor?
I think it's
I think you got to go with more
all.
of the anchor.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at they have 25 pages of their what are they calling it? The timeless icons watches, which are their DC collaboration.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
right. The superhero watches. And so when you recognize you got AP who did the Black Panther watch, and then you've got a variety of other tie-ins in other places, and then you've got some of these like, hey, I don't know, man. I don't know.
So I think there is a market for that. I think they could have done that well and marketed to like kids. But this is clearly not marketed towards kids. This thing is 53 millimeters. What 12-year-old is big enough for that right now?
Well, they do it like the Flavor Flav, and they wear it around their neck.
Yeah, right.
Silly me. Is it a belt buckle? That'd be pretty sick.
That's just ugly watch number one. Now, here's another one that we've discussed before, and Casey has dubbed it the football watch, and we'll get into that in a second. It's a part of their vintage line. It's called the Vintage Men. It's literally the shape of a football. It's 68 millimeters wide. It has the ugliest rubber strap with a leather insert. I don't even know how else to describe this. I mean,
but wait, can't you can also see through it? Isn't it skeletonized?
Yes, it's a skeletonized. Yeah, you can see through it. The curved
like
crystal,
a single bridge thing.
Yeah.
The crystal adds so much distortion to it that you can't really even tell what time it is, anyways. But it's funny.
And it's possibly the same wrist model, because it still didn't fit that person either.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? Just get your calipers out one day and play along at home. Measure out 68 millimeters on your wrist. That's how wide this friggin' thing is. It's ridiculous. But it's funny that you call it the football watch, because they actually have the NFL series, which has all the football teams and things like that. But you can get a watch that has a football field on it.
Of course you can. It doubles as a playing space.
I mean, again, there is a market that should be served there. Like people who are way too into football want to rep their team on their watch, and this would be a good way of doing that. But they don't do it well.
I mean, here's the thing. You keep saying there's a market for that. There's a market for that. There probably is, but I feel like, and this goes across the entire Invicta range, the market for these pieces have got to be so small, yet they have so many SKU numbers. They have so many things that they are offering right now. Who the hell are they marketing? Oh, you look at that. There it is right there. 68 millimeters.
There.
The thing is as wide as your wrist is round.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
But they offer so much. Like there's a market for it, but I feel like the market is two people.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting discussion though, because like I was taking a look, it's like, where can you buy these things? And Costco, discount stores.
If you want to find the really fugly stuff, you have to go to the Invicta boutiques because they are loaded with them. I've walked into one time and they have
That's right, you did.
all that ugly stuff. It is all there.
Bro, all right, so there are like legit cruises for these collectors and enthusiasts. They all get together and they show off these limited edition stuff.
Yeah, they buy out a Carnival cruise, and it's all Invicta collectors all the time. And they bring all their stuff. They have everything on display, and then they're looking, and they got all these giant things, and they're giving away watches and merchandise and this and blah 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 blah. And it's like, my goodness. I mean, they have a legit following of people. I will say that. I mean, there are people who are just bonkers for this stuff.
I mean, there are people who genuinely, like, I watched this YouTube video on one of those cruises. These people are like, yeah, I bought this limited production one. It's going to be worth so much in the future, yada, yada, yada. And I mean, maybe in that circle of people, but.
Well, okay, but so talk about this. Let's talk about the price range. Because like we're just talking about that pinball watch that Mike sent. That was, what was the retail on that?
What was it, $499, $399?
Yeah, $499,
like
which, and so it was discounted down to $90. And you see this, like, it's a value watch. Is it so? Like, are we going to consider it a fashion brand? Or are we going to consider it?
So that's the thing that doesn't make sense. I have never seen an Invicta sell for retail price that is on the price tag when you buy it. I had a watch one time that somebody gave me as a gift, and oddly, years and years and years ago, when I had watches stolen from my apartment, they stole that one, probably because the MSRP on that was $1,400, but it was a $150 watch. So I don't know who they're trying to fool. Are they trying to make you think that you're getting a $1,400 watch for 90% off? Like, come on.
I don't know.
So,
and I feel like if you fall for that, you deserve to have you are the Invicta buyer.
Like the salesperson was like, yeah, this is normally, a $1,200 watch. I'm like, no, the fuck, it's not. Stop.
No.
You want to hear something funny? I went into an Invicta quote unquote boutique one day. And for whatever reason, I had my 2 Invicta mods with me in my backpack. So I'm talking, and it was a girl salesperson, and she was pretty knowledgeable about the stuff, right? Like, oh, and you have this, and you have that. And I was looking at the pro divers, and she's like, oh, and this one does this, and this one does that, and they're the best watches looking, blah, blah. I said, let me show you something. So I pulled out my 2 Invicta mods, and I put them on the counter. She's like, oh, okay, that's pretty neat. What's that? I said, these are pro divers. She's like, no. She's, what are they? She says, this one is a Seiko on here, and this one, I've never heard that brand. I says, no. These are Invicta Pro Divers. I just made them better.
But circling kind of back to Joe about whether or not this is a fashion brand, I can tell you right now that for you to be a fashion brand, you have to be fashionable. So already
no, you are wrong.
Yeah,
really? You are wrong. And
I'd for sure call it a fashion watch.
You do not need to be fashionable to be a fashion brand. Some of the things that I've seen people wear, it's like, ooh.
Look at that watch that I brought up with the gold chains and the diamonds and this and that. I mean, somebody's trying to make a statement with that. That's a fashion piece, whether you can stomach it or not.
I think that the other part that when you start talking about a fashion brand, you start, and Mike brought it up really early. You look at the number of watches that they make, and the website is okay, but you can't do anything to really search all of them. And the other part too that I find to be fascinating is that you can search the watches by size, and it's under 40, and then 40 to 45, and then larger, and that's it. Those are your options when it comes to searching the size of the watch. And when you search under 40, you get ladies pieces and 1 pro diver, and that's it. And then everything else is larger than 40. So
the animations and logos on their website are dog already. The flash sale, what is that from, paint?
Can we talk another fugly watch real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay, so look in the folder. It's called, I have them labeled WTF1 and WTF2.
Yeah,
which is
I
it's the
saw
same
those.
watch.
I saw those, and I don't know what the heck is going on.
So WTF1, that is for all intents and purposes the front of the watch. Okay, WTF2 is when you open the hatch of watch number 1, you have watch number 2. So it's really 2 watches in one.
It's a dual time zone. It's a GMT.
Yeah, I feel like it's because if you can't read the display on the front, you have the traditional display in the back, which is some horrible Chinese skeletonized movement.
But the other part that makes it really really fugly is looking at the way that it's hinged, because that whole top dial section comes up. Like, talk about a failure point. Like, what do you think the case is made out of? Does it even say?
I think it's coated steel.
Yeah, it definitely can't be bioceramic.
Yeah, bioceramic. This is called the Akula Stealth Raider. That's the name of the model. Now, here's the more interesting part. And I don't know if you guys caught this by looking at the picture. Look at the picture of the front top case portion.
Yeah.
Isn't Akula Russian for shark?
You have, it might be, you might be onto something with your Russian army watch theory. You have 3 dials. One appears to be an hour dial, one looks like a minute dial, and the other one is a seconds dial. There are 3 crowns, which leads me to believe that the front portion is operated by 3 separate movements. Now, good luck trying to get all those to sync up.
It's shark. Anyway, yeah, Akula is Russian for shark.
That's phenomenal.
I don't know why the hell the bank of useless things I know. Akula, shark, got it.
Let's see. There you go.
If I ever get sent to Ukraine,
I wonder if those are functional crowns.
You know, honestly, I feel like it's a cheap way of getting into whatever the fuck the high-end horology pieces are, like the double
Well, that's
starship.
exactly it. It says, well, we want to have 3 separate dials. We're just going to put 3 different movements in there. But they forget that these things have to sync up. Like, I can only imagine what the plus minus minutes is per month on that thing. How do you even measure that? It's got to be horrible.
You measure it with the other ones.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the kind of weird, fugly stuff that they come up with.
Okay. Well, it makes it even better, though, because you go on the website and it is the Akula line of watches.
Yeah, it's the whole line.
It's not just that. You've got multiples to choose from. And you've got something that's kind of a Nautilus homage, wheel porthole looking sucker. And then you've got another dual dial time zone crowns at 12 and 6 in a variety of different colors. They've got something that they want to make it look like it's got a resonance, dual balance wheel.
Yeah,
thing going
I saw
on.
that too.
Right. There's just some really, really interesting stuff in terms of how these are designed and what they seem to be trying to do. But there's a level of kind of, I guess, schizophrenia might be too nice to say, and it's a quartz. Here's the thing. It's Swiss mechanical and quartz for the movement of that one that you're talking about, Mike. 50 meters of water resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And
a watch named Shark is only water resistant to 50 meters.
Yeah, as it should be.
Because it makes sense.
well, depends on who you are.
So, I mean, you talk design and schizophrenia. Do you know that when designers leave Invicta and they graduate in their designing programs, they go to Hublot?
Go to where?
The Hublot.
Oh, well, so it's an interesting point. It's an interesting point because so the question is, like, who is the client for Invicta? where are they coming from? What are they doing? And it's like, okay, cool. Invicta is an entry level brand without exception.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, that's the brand that you get into entry brand.
Well, okay, but it's still like, this is going to be somebody's first watch, or even better, it's the first watch that they buy for themselves, and they're going to be doing it on a cruise, or they're going to go somewhere and they'll take a look, and it's really flashy. It works for them, but it's like, okay, where do you go next? And part of what when doing the research for this episode, part of the things that people were talking about is like, okay, we go from Invicta to Breitling. And then to Hublot, which I thought was really, really interesting, because if you look at some of the design for some of the Breitlings, there's a level of complexity to the dials. There's a level of ostentatiousness to the dials, but the difference is those dials are completely functional. And you look at some of the Breitling, Fliegers, that they have so much going on the dial, whereas you're like, okay, this is an unusable watch because of all of the technical specs that are on the dial. I've got a chronograph, I've got a telemetry meter, I've got a snail dial, I've got this,
like a Navitimer.
Yeah. Well, and there's offerings that they did where they try to put everything into one space.
But,
it's like,
but
okay,
see, the difference is that's useful. Like Invicta will put all kinds of weird shit on their dials that's completely irrelevant. It's like, well, how do you use this? I don't know. Does it make any sense?
No, not at all.
But the Hublot Big Bangs are I mean, it has to be Invicta designers that just left Invicta and went and worked for them.
That's a hell of a promotion.
Is it though? I don't know.
So I just threw up another one in the new folder, and it's the I think it's supposed to be, well, it's called an Invicta Pro Diver, but I think it looks very similar to their.
It's like it looks like the Russian diver, but
right
diver, because that's Steve at the top.
I mean, it's a freaking canteen.
It's with a chain.
Yeah,
like the watch has got a wallet chain on it.
Oh my gosh! And wallet chains obviously are the height of fashion. So.
But look at the subdials, the 369 subdials. It's like,
and you know what? I'd be willing to challenge whether or not they do anything. Those pushers might be just like decoration. The surfboard, where you just adjust the second time zone.
So when we get into some decent offerings, I'm not going to talk the surfboard, but I am going to talk something similar to that, and those pushers. So we'll get into that frustration in a minute.
Well, do we feel like we have savaged Invicta enough here?
No, not yet. Not yet.
I don't feel like we have,
because
we could keep going on this.
Well, here's the thing, because I got curious about the Acuna and how you set it and what all the crowns are.
The Acuna Matata?
Yeah. And what you get on their spec sheet is how to work one movement, and you pull the crown out and you can set, but it doesn't say how many crowns there are. It doesn't give you any specs on it.
I looked that up too, because I wanted you set the time on that. It's a basic service booklet. It's all it is. I know.
It's wow. It's something else, man. It's something else.
Nice. Well, so after just completely leaving a steaming turd on Invicta's face, so what are some redeeming new watches?
So let me pull up here. Are we getting into vintage stuff, or can we talk vintage stuff now?
Yeah, let's go talk vintage.
Okay, because one of my moderns, it ties directly into a vintage, and I said we're not talking a surfboard, but actually technically we are, but not the one that I was thinking of. So the vintage Invicta surfboard is another highly sought after collectible vintage chronograph. Uses the same Valjoux 7733 as you would expect it to, from all the other chronographs from that era. Surfboard dial has no bezel, so it's more of like your guys's bull of a chronograph, not the deep sea, but the one that's just the case.
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of that. And then speaking of case sharing, Waltham also had the exact same everything, just with Waltham at the top instead of Invicta.
It's a nice watch. I would wear that. It's really good.
It's a nice watch. Now look in my folder, there's a comparison photo.
Yeah, I saw. I'm on that now.
They reissued this watch. Okay. Invicta doesn't like to say that they do reissues. They throw it into their vintage line. And it looks fantastic. It has very similar to the same case shape, the same hand style. It has the orange second hand, the white subdial hands. I mean, the surfboard, the white dial, everything. They did a great job on this watch. The problem is, I don't know why it comes to a bicompax chronograph dial. They use this movement. It's the 3 o'clock subdial is a 24-hour counter for the real time, okay, which is nothing new. I can get past that. However, the 9 o'clock subdial is a separate 24-hour zone that you can set independently of the actual time. So it's a dual time zone watch, not a chronograph. The chronograph seconds hand is your running seconds. But you would say, Mike, it has a start and stop pusher on the case. Well, yes, it does. They are merely for decoration, because all those do is set or retard the 24-hour subdial that you can set independently.
Oh,
so
that's
there is
nuts,
zero
man. That's nuts.
Chronograph function whatsoever.
Why would you do that?
That's unfortunate.
And you know what? They could put there are so many different
Seiko.
Yeah, the Seikos, the Miyotas, they have these 2 registered chronographs, the movements that you can put in here. It could have been really a killer vintage Invicta reissue. I would have bought one in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for this stupid dual 24-hour time zone thing.
And so I think that also kind of highlights the fact that Invicta isn't thinking about the enthusiast market so much, because most watch enthusiasts would look at that and be like, well, WTF, I want a chronograph, not whatever this is.
Yeah.
Because if that's what we're going for, then what's the point?
And here's the thing: the photos that they use are so misleading, because when you look at it, the how do I say, the independently settable 24-hour dial and the seconds hand are all upwards. So it appears as if it's a chronograph. And I sent Joe a picture one time of a surfboard that looks like the Bulva surfboard. It has the same, blue and red bezel and surfboard look to it, and the white dial and all that. And I'm like, dude, look at it. It's only like $69. It'd be a perfect beater watch for work with the chronograph and all that. It just looks cool. But when I was researching it, that's when I found out the movement that's behind it. And I'm like, I am glad I did not buy that, because I would have been so pissed if it came. And that's what it was.
It's got, so that's the whole thing. Like it's got the looks. It just doesn't have anything else.
It has the looks, because it is absolutely gorgeous looking. I mean, it's beautiful. They nailed the design on it, but they totally missed with that movement.
Yeah.
But they do have some other actual genuinely good stuff. And my good model pick is, they have, and I don't know what it's called offhand, but it is a 35 millimeter field watch, blued hands. This one has a cream dial. It comes on a cream, what is that, like a woven nylon NATO, and a subdial for the seconds at the 6 o'clock. Stainless steel case. I mean, it's basic, but it's pretty. I think they did really well on that one.
My pick, at least we were talking about modern, it's all about their kind of their pro diver line, which is one of the few ones that you can get that'll be below 40. And they've got this kind of funky little, almost an Explorer homage. But not quite.
They have that too. Yeah.
So you can get that, but then the pro diver, The Pro Diver's fairly, it's your kind of your sub homage, but you got case colors, dial colors. It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah. And actually my dad, he got me one of those. He actually got all of his boys a Pro Diver when we were stationed in Germany.
Buy one, get one free.
He was it wasn't free. Because this is where that lady was like, "Oh, I normally retail for blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
And but of course, I don't think he was quite into watches at that point in time. He just like, "Wow, this is an automatic watch. That's pretty cool. It's cheap enough. I get all my kids this." And so he tried to impress upon a bunch of kids how cool this automatic watch was, which we immediately neglected. The youngest put it in a garbage disposal. So, but as far as getting into watches, like it's cool. Like it's a good place to start. But in their genuine vintage lineup, if you're going to look for genuine Invicta vintage, I would recommend that you hop on eBay and go look for a Royal Marine. And this one is a bezel-less example, but you get a lot of them with a bezel on it. It's got a cushion case. And I don't know if that bezel is Bakelite or not, but they age really well. It's rated to 100 years.
It's kind of like split into two colors, that bezel.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Those are really cool.
Yeah, so those are cool. I mean, you're probably going to end up paying 200 plus for one, and they don't show up very often. The ones that are up there, I think, are asking a lot of money for them. I just saw one pop up for $150, and that only stayed up for, I think, 12 hours before someone bought it.
Someone grabbed it that fast.
Yeah.
It's such a weird spot when you start looking at vintage Invicta, particularly like eBay is sort of the marketplace of the world. And if you've got something that you want to sell, that's where it's going to go. There's not a lot. Like
right.
if you search up vintage Bulova, you
get pages of it.
Right.
Yep.
And this is very, very, particularly when you do the filter for anything that's 1980 or older. And it's what, 2 pages? There's not a whole lot there, but some of the offerings that are there's some kind of cool stuff. And so like, if you throw into the vintage folder that we've got up, I have a couple of picks that, there's a nice chronograph with a inner track goldish case, decent pushers, nice dial configuration,
which looks like maybe a 50s or below model.
Probably. I mean, you see that we've got a really solid chronograph movement going on in the back because they pulled off the case back. There's that round shaped green dial, and perhaps it's a redial. Maybe that's the problem. We don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like where are the resources to take a look at that? And it's just not something that I'm familiar with, or at least
I have seen another one that has that kind of pastel-y color,
like a pistachio kind of thing. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that's like a 60s thing.
It certainly could be. It certainly could be. Like the next choice I have is this tank style.
I'm just looking at that one now. That's actually pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Nice
really
style to it. Yeah.
It might be a quartz piece.
It could. It says that it's 17 joules. So
it says 17 on there. So yes, it's probably a mechanical.
Right. And it's with the original strap, but the seller's willing to get you another strap. And the other thing I find fascinating with some of these is the asking price, because we're looking at like $600-$500.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like if it were any other brand, who knows? Who knows what you like for something
like
that's
you
comparable.
said. It's so hard to find vintage Invicta. I can see the price being what it is, and I think it's almost worth it for these models because they are. And rare is a term that's thrown around a lot in vintage watches, but I feel like these watches are pretty rare.
You don't
when it comes to you don't see them. Yeah, I mean,
and that's kind of what got me after I received my concussion to look into these. Like I'm just like, right. Invicta is this underdog. It is the joke of the watch community. Let me see what they have. And you see some pretty decent vintage offerings, but just not many.
It's so funny. So like the
Like, what
last,
the hell happened? What, like, were they? I don't know. Were they associated with the Nazis, and maybe they just like they're like dumping all these watches to try to hide the fact that there's some sort of evil conspiracy behind Invicta. That's
wow,
like
you said you were drinking water.
it said concussion.
Okay, concussion. All right, then
He did say, yeah.
it makes more sense.
Clearly, there's some war crimes being covered up.
There's something's happening. Something's happening.
Yeah.
So like the last choice I have is this world timer with a date complication on it. The bezel looks great.
Which reminds me of that Caravel.
That's cool too.
It does. It's got the same, but it has there's a day on it. It's a really nice piece. Real slender lugs.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right? You see what I'm talking about? It's great. I would wear the crap out of that. So
yeah, that's a Royal Marine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it looked like, right?
And there's so many different like variations of the Royal Marine. Like, I'm not even sure if this one, maybe it was supposed to come with a bezel, and maybe it's missing its bezel, but we don't know. There is the unofficial vintage Invicta website. It's like actually the title of it. And there is some traffic on it, but not a lot of articles, and it doesn't span a lot of this collection. So
you know what you should do, and I'd be interested to see what you come up with, but try and look for old advertisements and see what shows up in advertising.
Yeah,
it'd be fascinating. It'd be real fascinating.
That would be interesting to look at and see.
That vintage Caravel skipper I got, that Mike took the time to go find the name on. I punched that into Google and bang, immediately found an ad for it, and it's not the same for Invicta.
Yeah, it seems that you've got it, and it can't. I'm sorry, it just can't be the case. It can't be the case. There have to be vintage Invicta collectors. There just have to be, because the offerings are good.
Ties to Nazi war crimes, they're not going to come out and say that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that you're going to have Nazis coming after you for slander, but even still.
So and you talked about it too. You compared the World Timer to the Caravel. These are every bit as good as the old vintage watches from that era. I mean, didn't you open that one up and you showed a picture of the movement? It's a AS2066 base movement, which is a movement that was widely popular in the 60s and 70s. So I mean, it's every bit as serviceable, every bit as reliable. I mean, they're great design. It really are hidden gems in the vintage watch world.
Yeah.
And the same thing can be said for their modern stuff. If you take the time
to look for the hidden gems
and dig through their catalog, you can find some good stuff. The Pro Diver line is the best sub $100 line that they have. You're getting a dive watch, 200 meters, screw down crown. If you're getting the mechanical versions, they have a quartz version that's 38 millimeters, which is a push pull crown. They have the 1953, which is a phenomenal offering. It started with the Citizen 8 series movements. They have since switched to the Seiko NH35s is what they're offering right now, which is a workhorse of a movement. If you don't like it,
it's a solid watch.
It's a solid watch. It's a great platform for Invicta mods. I mean, so many people, they sell parts for these watches, the Pro Divers. It's a great line. It's a great first watch. If you really want to see if you like watches or not, the Invicta Pro Diver line is phenomenal. It really is. And like this little field watch here, some of the other stuff that you guys found, they're ladies' watches. They make some nice ladies' stuff. My girlfriend has a lot of Invicta's ladies' watches, and they're phenomenal. In fact, their ladies' watches, 3-handers, the running seconds hand is a smooth sweep seconds hand. Now, how are you going to tell me that Invicta can have a smooth sweep second quartz hand and nobody else can do that?
But to your point about it being a good place to enter. So if you want to see if you like watches, if you want to see if you want to be part of like the collector community, I wouldn't want to hang out with them necessarily, but there is a like Invicta collecting community, which they might not be a good representation of the rest of us, but you know, they're like the weird kid over in the corner there huffing paint.
But look, on the plus side, if you buy an Invicta watch, you get a pretty kick-ass yellow box like what Casey's got on his desk there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, all right, yo, so I didn't know this thing was going to come with box and papers. Like, I just jumped on it because I saw a vintage digital, but this is like the 90s box versus
Yeah, that's an older box.
this,
versus
which
the
I
newer
believe is
kind of
a newer
clamshell
one.
style.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it freaking came with, you know, freaking
And-
tags and everything. But this
and with
would
a
this retailed for $279. So I think they probably weren't pursuing their ridiculous price campaign at that point.
well, that was the 90s, 200 and whatever dollars. What was it retailing for? $49 then?
Who knows?
Not according to this hang tag, but I bet you back then a
Well,
module like this probably was going to be around that price.
the Pro Diver probably also retails for $795 too, or the MSRP is $795, which we all know you can get for $69.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's
if-
some fantastic offerings. I think that it's a way to kind of get yourself into the space. You can do it on a little bit of a budget. You've got some cred in a lot of the pieces. If you want to go vintage, you end up with a lot more credibility because some of those vintage pieces are just great. They're really, really nice.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I mean, whether
Go to
you
a
like
watch
them or
meet.
not, that's the thing, man. If you went to a watch meet with a vintage Invicta, you do pretty well because you don't see them. You don't see them,
Yeah.
and they are cool. But
Yeah.
whether you want to admit it or not, Invicta really has something for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Everybody.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah, the sane and the insane.
Right.
The weird kid over in the corner huffing the paint to the weird kid that
Yeah, they got something for him too.
And who knows? It's probably a mod that you can do to the Invicta that you carry your own little paint can with it too. So it
It's
works.
it's the flask one.
Well, actually, you joke. They did the Brito series. Remember that?
No.
The artist Brito. What was his name? I forget what his name is. Something Brito. He's like a weird contemporary artist, abstract artist, and they came out with this whole line of watches that have his art all over them.
Okay.
Oh, and then they have see, we could get going in the roasting them again. They have their dipped watches where they dip them and it comes out in the print and it looks like graffiti.
Oh, the Hydra dip.
The Hydro dip. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
the
have
Hydro
not.
like
I've
street
avoided that
graffiti all
rabbit
over their
hole.
stuff. I know. It's so easy to roast a company. We could go for hours.
But do we have any last calls?
I got a last call. I got a last call. I got a last call. So
Enlighten us.
my last call. Seiko DX automatic square mid-70s on mesh. This is my dad's watch.
A watch that's very near and dear to your heart.
Very much. This is my dad's watch. This is the watch I remember him wearing. Like he and I have been talking. He's got a vintage Hoyer Viceroy that he's had repair done and all the other stuff. But this is the one that I remember him wearing, and it was his birthday yesterday. 83 years strong. So shout out to my dad.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Happy birthday.
That's it.
Casey, you got anything?
Yeah. I mean, I'm working on the Warrior Watch Wednesday story for the guy who my dad sold his duty watch to, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting. But specifically, it talks about a sector of our high impact professions that is often overlooked, and that's correctional facilities. Because I mean, I don't even want to think about being in prison. Okay. But I got to thinking about it, and it's a job that. So I've had some soldiers in my formation who are correction officers. Some of the stuff they tell me is pretty wild, and in part, I just kind of think the people who go and do that job, I do really hope that they appreciate that it requires an immense amount of, personal fortitude and to be able to execute that duty in an impartial manner and not use it as an opportunity to bash the crap out of somebody, which I'm not saying this gentleman does, but after hearing some of the way some of my soldiers talk about how they do things at work, I'm just like, dude, what the freak? So those who do that job and do it genuinely and to standard and well should be, commended, because there's definitely some a-holes out there.
It is a job. Without question. It's not an easy one. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that people have to go through and what they're dealing with. And we don't talk a whole lot about occupational hazard or some of the other things that go with you, but I teach, and it's kind of easy to leave my job at work. Mike can leave his job at work. I would sincerely hope that you don't get to do much bringing home of correctional officer work to your house.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I feel like, so my girlfriend's sister is a corrections officer. And I think you bring home a lot of the mental stress for sure.
Yeah. Some of the soldiers I have, I mean, again, they're really good people, but they're a different breed, man.
Yeah, hats off, man, because it's not easy. I can't imagine getting up in the morning and be like, oh crap,
I'm about to get crap flung in my face.
What am I going to run into today? Because I'm sure no 2 days are alike.
Well, and he was telling me that, like, on a shift, I think he's got like 7 officers for like 600 people. Holy shit. Right. We had a company of soldiers down at the Richmond riot when there was 700 people coming down on us. And I was like, this is not going to be good. I couldn't imagine 600 people. And I've only got 7 people with me.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, it's like you say, it's a job for very select few people. That's for sure.
Not me.
So I don't necessarily have a see. Here's the problem with last calls. I never really think about it until your guys are like, "Hey, last call." I'm like, "Oh crap, I didn't think of something." So I make stuff up on the fly, and I made something up on the fly just now, and it involves the show, and I didn't discuss it with you guys because it just popped into my head. But it's something that I wanted to do for a little while. Every week we have to come up with a topic to discuss. Something that's going to be fun and entertaining for you guys to watch and listen to. But let's get a little audience interaction. Why don't we let our listeners decide our next topic?
Yeah.
What do you think of that? So drop a comment if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section here. If you're listening on one of our audio platforms, go to our Instagram, send us a DM, shoot us an email, put it in the comments of our episode 32 post. Whatever. So we'll listen to you guys, make some suggestions. We'll pick one of them out, and that'll be our topic for episode, 33 coming up. So whatever you guys want to talk about, we'll talk about it. So
maybe we can also potentially do it. I mean, maybe we can run a poll and have some suggestions.
Yeah, we can do that. We can make some options and then let you guys vote on which one. Or I mean, if we got some good ones too, then we can keep those in our back pocket and
absolutely
do the future episodes on that. So that's my last call. You guys dictate what episode 33 is going to be. So like I say, DMS, comment, whatever. We'll pay attention to that and pick out something cool to talk about next time. So that's my last call.
Hell yeah.
Well, so if they're gonna do that, if they're going to DM us, if they're going to communicate with us, Mike, how can they do that?
Well, this evening, Joe, Casey, and myself, we make up Spring Bar Podcast. You guys can find us on Instagram at the Spring Bar Podcast. You can email us, thespringbarpodcast@gmail.com. On a personal level, I am 120 clicks, all spelled out, one long word, 120 clicks. Joe.
I am Watch Taylor Youth, all spelled out, one long word, Watch Taylor Youth. KC.
I am time.hack1636.
Don't forget, we are Volva affiliates. Doesn't mean that we are sponsored by Bulova. That means we are sponsored by you. So any purchases that you plan to make, we have links in our show Instagram bio. We also have QR codes that we will flash up on the screen. One for Bulova, give you a few seconds, and we've got one for Citizen. So if you guys are going to purchase anything online through Bulova or Citizen, click our link, scan the QR code. It takes you right to the site. All it does is it just tracks what you guys purchase, and we get a little bit of percentage of that. Just help support the show so we can keep doing some cool stuff. So we genuinely appreciate if you did that for us.
Buy more storage.
Yeah, storage, giveaways, whatever.
This is the sexy nuts and bolts of a
Oh, I hear about your nuts, man.
Anything else, guys?
Yeah, side note, you should probably get those checked every once in a while. Testicular cancer is a thing.
Yeah. Check out your nuts and bolts to make sure they're all okay.
Professionally. Have it done professionally. Not go to a certified nuts and bolts checker.
Okay.
All right, then. Well, I guess until next time, where you, the viewer, decide what it is that we are going to talk about. Cheers.
Cheers.
Adios.